In this video, I'm going to be debunking the teleological argument for the existence of God. The teleological argument is stated as the following. However, there are variations of this argument, but they all state fundamentally the same thing. 1. Nature exhibits complexity, order, adaptation, purpose, and/or beauty. 2. The exhibited features cannot be explained by random or accidental processes, but only as a product of mind. 3. Therefore, there exists a mind that has produced or is producing nature. 4. A mind that produces nature is a definition of God. 5. Therefore, God exists. The teleological argument would actually apply to the proposed designer, arguing any designer must at least be as complex and as purposeful as the designed object. Premise 1 states that nature exhibits complexity, order, adaptation, purpose, and/or beauty. God would carry these same attributes, making it so that, in turn, God would require a designer, leading to an infinite regress of designers. The counter-argument to this states that since the designer exists outside of the natural laws of the universe, he is therefore exempt from any laws requiring a design to have a designer. But let's take a look at premise 1. A lot of these qualifications for design are either immaterial concepts or something not limited to nature. If it was only nature-based, God would be argued to have no purpose without being designed. And if you say that he is outside nature, therefore he can have purpose, notice premise 1. The descriptive terms are used to demonstrate that nature is designed. It's not arguing the other way around, that something natural only can be designed and it just happens to have these attributes. It is merely stating the qualifications of design and stating that nature falls under those categories. So, the outside natural laws argument has no arguable power to refute this objection without destroying the first premise. Because since these attributes are not nature exclusive, one could argue that since there are exceptions to the rule, it is possible for nature to not be designed. Once the advocate of the teleological argument makes the claim that God is outside nature, his argument falls apart. Not because that is a truth statement, but simply because it is an unsubstantiated cop-out that does little to exempt God from the first premise of the argument, which in turn demonstrates a major flaw of the teleological argument. Premise 2, the exhibited features cannot be explained by random or accidental processes, but only as a product of mind. Yes, it can. Notice, this premise only states that it can't be explained, and the multiverse interpretation is an explanation. I'm not saying I particularly subscribe to this. However, it has just as much explanatory power as any design argument, considering they both have little to no evidence, and both do not logically follow exclusively from the appearance of design. This doesn't necessarily mean that there is no designer, but it demonstrates that this argument is not necessarily a good deductive argument. Also, evolution can explain the appearance of design in organisms. Natural selection driving random mutations causes a completely random process to be directed and not random. So not only is the second premise wrong, but it also makes the assumption that all natural processes are random. Or an accident, of course, but that is solely based on the definition of accident. To say nature as a whole is designed destroys the method of design detection itself. In order to detect if something is designed, we compare it to something else in nature. For example, a rock to an arrowhead or a computer program. If we say the rock is designed, how can we produce evidence of design within nature itself when we have no real basis for differentiating the designed from not designed? 3. Therefore, there exists a mind that has produced or is producing nature. No, it does not follow logically. One might be persuaded by this argument, but it is not sound from a purely logical standpoint. Now notice, when they say mind, they are saying that because of inductive inference on what we see in nature. All minds in nature are seen to produce things in nature that are designed. Now, if we take the same evidence they use for this, concluding there is a mind behind it, we could form an argument like 1. All minds are contained within a body. 2. God is defined as a disembodied mind. 3. Therefore, God does not exist. Now, theists are probably screaming in their chairs saying, "How could you be so stupid? God is obviously not like anything natural." And then I would say, I know this, but my argument contains the same exact inductive inference you used for the teleological argument, and is as strong of an analogy as the one you used, considering you're using natural things to make supernatural conclusions. Why can't I do the same? Then if you are to object to this, take into consideration that if anything, you're showing the existence of a natural designer, and we'd have to resort to other objections. 4. A mind that produces nature is a definition of God. If you wish to call something that produces nature God, then you are welcome to come up with that definition. But if that's the only qualification to be God, some type of alien outside nature, as we know it, could be God. Any type of being, even if it was a finite one, could be the designer. The designer could have already died, making atheism at one point false, and now true. Also, pantheism could be true, making this argument pointless. Also, God could be defined as a set of laws that govern all of existence, and that would require no mind. Then of course that wouldn't be really God, but you get my point, considering God is God, and God is, as defined by most religions, can only behave in a just way. And if God can only behave in a certain way, him creating the universe was inevitable, because he's unchanging. The same could be said for a natural process. If the default state of existence contains something that needs to create us, then why can't the default state of existence contain a law that would eventually create us without all these unnecessary parts that compose of a mind? Those are just simply unnecessary for us to exist. Take into consideration this. If God exists, it is likely that humans will exist. But that does not mean that if humans exist, it is likely that God exists. For example, you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than winning the lottery. Jill won the lottery, therefore Jill got struck by lightning. See how people could easily twist these probabilities around, but when compared to something else it just looks like silly logic? Let's have some more reductio ad absurdum fun. All designers have causes to their existence. Such as a human, they have a cause to their existence. They are born, and etc. All organisms that are designers are born into existence. They have a cause. God designed the universe. God is a designer. Therefore, God is not uncaused. This argument contains no more assumptions than the teleological argument makes. In fact, it's better because for the teleological argument to work, you have to invent ad hoc hypotheses to save it. For example, you have to say we know these things are always designed, therefore it had a designer. Except this one designer is an exception to every qualifier a designer normally has, rendering it counterintuitive to the types of inferences made by the teleological argument itself. Let's take it one step further. The attributes one commonly attributes to God are unnecessary for the teleological argument to be true. These additional ad hoc hypotheses to save a specific definition of God can be weeded out via Occam's razor, and then you might have ended up proving a designer you weren't intending to prove. Because if some uncaring designer exists, it doesn't exactly have a practical effect on your life, then rather the Christian one.